Okay, so this page that I have right here, to me, um, really is the most important thing to understand about correlation is the relationship between correlation and causation. Um, when I was working on my master's degree, I had a professor who would hound this notation in every class period. He would preach and preach and preach. Correlation does not equal causation. Correlation does not equal causation. If he said it once, he said it 100 times. So I would feel as if I failed him if I didn't try to make sure that you understand that correlation and causation are not the same thing. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm going to let you read it, but I'm going to try to give you a couple of examples um, about correlation not equaling causation, those not being the same thing. So I Googled a couple of things. There's a whole page here of different websites with different documentations that show that women who own horses live 15 years longer than those who don't. So this would be an example of someone establishing that there is a correlation between the number of years a woman lives compared to owning a horse or not. Okay. So someone said that those who own horses have longer lifespans. So some people would say that the fact that there is a correlation, and you typically can't argue with the correlation. You guys know that a correlation is just simply a relationship between two things. Just it's a correlation. You can't argue about that. You're going to get a scatter plot, and those scatter plots are either going to exist or they don't. You can't argue with that. It's not an opinion. It's not. It's non-negotiable. You either see the relationship or you don't. And so the fact that we see a relationship between women who own horses and their lifespan, that correlation does exist. But is the correlation or the presence of a correlation enough to say that owning a horse causes the woman's life to be extended? And what you have to do is look at, are there any other circumstances that could exist from owning a horse that might contribute to the extension of a lifespan? One example that you can consider would be to own a horse is typically a pretty expensive thing. You have to, house them and feed them and just purchasing them. So, generally speaking, I know I'm not saying across the board, but generally speaking, women who own and ride horses, as a hobby, are going to be on the wealthier side. They're going to have access to funds in order to transport this horse and feed this horse and house this horse and buy all of the stuff to go along with this horse. That's a fact that's pretty easy to understand. And so, what might be more of an explanation towards the cause of women who own horses having extended lifespans would be the fact that they are financially set. And financially set women have a tendency to have more access to better health care. So it's not the owning of the horse, but the circumstances around owning the horse that really is contributing to the lifestyle. Same things could be said about playing golf. If you play golf, you live longer. Again, playing golf is generally not a poor man's sport because you have to pay for the golf, for the privilege to golf and the clubs and the time off to do it and all that kind of stuff. So, generally speaking, those men who can afford to play golf on a regular basis um, are more likely to have the income that would support better health care, and better health care is what tends to make them live longer, not the actual golf game. Now, I'm not saying that there is no benefits. I'm just saying that just because we have a positive correlation or a negative correlation or any correlation between the game of golf and lifespans, it's not necessarily the cause. Okay. Here's another one that talks about crime increasing, specifically homicides. Um, the number of homicides go up as the full moon happens. So again, they're saying there's a positive correlation. The closer you are to a full moon, the higher the homicide rates are. So does that mean that the moon is the cause of the homicides? And more likely than not, it could be something as simple as I don't know, with the brighter moonlight, with the more light, maybe the if you're shooting somebody, you have more light to see your shot and you make it. I mean, I don't know. Um, but again, it's just that you need to be sure you understand that the presence of a correlation does not necessarily equal causation. So one of the things that I point to whenever I'm thinking about this are diet pills. Because there's always somebody out there that says, "Oh, I took this pill and I lost 20 pounds in 30 days." I'm not going to argue the fact that that happened. It very likely could have happened. So did the taking of the pill, though, is that what caused that 20-pound loss? And you guys, I'm sure, have heard of the placebo effect. They do lots of times when they're doing drug trials, they'll give one person the actual drug and they'll give another person a sugar pill that has, no medicinal values whatsoever. And a lot of times, the person who's taken the fake medicine will have the same results as the person who did. It's so you can't say that that pill caused that thing, even though if you plotted it out on a X and Y axis, it would show a correlation. So you just have to be careful when you see correlations. Don't necessarily argue that it is a causation. Just because you took the pill does not mean that the pill itself is what caused you to lose weight. It could have been something else. It could have been you ate less. It could have been, you exercised more and you didn't realize it. Could have been lots of things. But sometimes the correlation is the causation. So I'm not saying that it never is. It sometimes is. It's just that too often, especially in advertisement, they use the presence of a correlation to try to sell the causation. So just be careful and make sure you understand the difference between those two.